Hello gamers, we're about a week into the launch of Evil Dead, and right now we have a guide for Evil Dead 2 Ash. He's probably one of the characters I've played the most so far. I think he's a lot of fun as far as what he can do and what he offers to your team, and I kind of just enjoy the hunter role overall. So he's the first character that I maxed out. Right behind him is Evil Dead 1 Ash and Army of Darkness Ash, as well as Ed and Scotty. Those are some of the ones I've played with the most. Typically, I do a lot of melee attacks, but with this build, I focus on ranged attacks and looting and shooting. So that's kind of where I get the idea of the loot and shoot. So how I play my hunter is I kind of like to keep a big bubble around my team while I kind of scout, look for chests, and mark them. So the cool thing about Ash 2 is that he has a lot of stamina at his disposal with the build that I have this. So he can easily run away from enemies if you're getting overwhelmed, or he can also stand on his own because the damage that you can output with this character is pretty awesome. So I'm going to go into some of the finer things. This is not a concrete best build because the game is still so young, but this is what I like to run and what I find the most beneficial, and I'm going to explain why I feel that way about certain picks. So for the first is long shot. Um, Typically with these increased range abilities, I don't like them too much because when you're playing a lot in the game, you are often up close and personal, and it kind of takes away from the strength of the double barrel. So it's not meant to be a long range rifle. It's supposed to be like a medium to short range, encounter. So I only put point in that just to move on. So hollow points, this is an easy one. This should be matched or maxed on pretty much. This should be maxed on pretty much every range specialty character. This is a flat 25% damage increase. So this is an easy 4 for me. So moving on to the next one is Divide and Conquer, increased dismemberment damage of ranged weapons. Again, if you're hitting a limb, this is a flat 25% bonus damage. So this is adding on to already. If you're hitting someone in the head, that's a 50% damage, or in the leg, 50% damage. So you move on to reduce the spread of a ranged weapon. Because he's using the double barrel, I don't want to max this really, just because I don't know exactly how the weapons work yet, but in my mind, we're using a shotgun, so I can see where that would be good, but I also don't mind hitting things next to them if there's a crowd, if that makes sense. So especially if I'm in that sweet spot range. And then 4 is increased headshot damage. So this might be a personal preference, but again, this is a flat 25% bonus if you have all 4 points in it. And I love using weapons like the revolver if it comes to me, or pistols, and I think this adds to that because I like getting headshots with those, as well as the double barrel, of course, when you can afford it. My rule of thumb is if I only have the generic double barrel, I will take a legendary or epic revolver or pistol or something if it, because the damage output at that point would be higher, probably, I'm assuming, than just a normal double barrel. Stopping power increases balance bar damage from your range weapons. That's kind of like if you're not familiar with the balance bar, it's that white bar that's underneath the health bar. It's kind of like the shield, or kind of gets them ready for a finishing attack. If you're familiar with Elden Ring, there's like a hidden thing that's when they kind of fall over or whatever. I haven't experimented too much with this. This might be an overpowered thing and I might be missing out on it, but honestly, I don't use finishers very much. I'm very ranged when I use Hunter. I kind of sit back and let everybody else kind of give the melees if they if they so desire, but I'm normally, you know, 5 or 6 feet back, or maybe 10 feet back, kind of shooting these guys and priming them for that melee. That's what I feel like the hunter's role is in team fights. And then reduces the recoil of range weapons. I could see where that'd be beneficial, but I would rather go for damage output and kind of bank on my accuracy than worry about recoil damage. Um, And that same goes with the 4 headshots. If you're not confident with your headshots or you feel like it's hard for you to get that, I could definitely see moving points into these other two. Moving down to the next one, Fear No Evil. This is more a general perk that I like, a flat 20% fear reduction, and that's because I kind of like to go on my own every once in a while, and one of the hardest things to do is manage that fear when you're in a weird spot. So I like this better than the situational ones coming down the line here. So reduces the amount of fear received for demon traps, health from damage from demon traps. I just like the flat fear resistance. So that would come from traps. It would come from mobs or other enemies that give you fear. I just like the flat general. That's what we should probably be focusing on, in my opinion. But again, this is not set in stone. The game's only been out a week, so we're just trying to see. Reinforced Amulet. I think this could be a flex one if you play with a lot of Pablos, or if you have a team that works together and have Pablo. You know, this could be one that would be fine, maybe instead of some of the other things. But solo, playing on my own, I don't really add too much of the shield, because there's really not a ton of shield perks outside of that. Staying power, maximum stamina. That's part of my looting and shooting ideology. I like to run a lot. I like to get out of hairy situations, and sometimes I like to get from point A to point B while my teammates are kind of looking at something else. So I like to run around, outrun them, try to scout an area ahead of them. That way we can move through a little quicker, and that just adds to that stam. Anything that's a flat stat boost, I like that. Quicker picker upper. This is one of the things that I have started to really enjoy while playing, is picking up items faster. It makes, again, getting in and getting out as fast as possible, and this helps with that. I had 2 spare points on some of my other categories, so I threw them in here. The 10% doesn't add a lot, but that 25% is when you really start noticing the difference of holding E on something for PC, and it really makes a difference at that 25%. 40 might be a little overkill. Deadly from a distance. I don't like this if you're using double barrel, so I ignored it completely. If you're 32 feet away, then it gives 5% up to 15%. That's just not good enough. It's too situational, and it's not something I like. Last chance. Increase the damage dealt by last bullet in the gun. I don't like that if we are using anything other than our normal set. So basically this is something that you would want to use when it's always active. If you're using crossbow, so this would be good for Ed, because he has that crossbow perk. I would not recommend this for Ash, because you could just use 4 points and hollow points and get the 25% rather than a situational 30%. Artful Dodge. I like this one because it increases more that our stamina while our usage. So stamina usage is big for this build. I think you have to pay attention to where you're going and what you're doing, and this just kind of helps our movement. Plus it unlocks our deadly up close, which I think is very beneficial to our range damage. 16.5 feet for a flat 25% damage. I think that's very manageable in this game because everything is really up close and personal. So if you kind of give a count, if you get something within 16 feet of you, you get 25 bonus, plus 25 for just the normal, plus 25 if you get a headshot. That's 175% bonus damage. As well as if you get a dismemberment, that's 100% bonus damage. So you can see it could add very, very quickly, a very high damage output if you're in late game team fights. And I'm thinking objectives, I'm thinking Kandarian Dagger, I'm thinking pages. You're really up close. That circle is not that big, so when you're in that range, it's definitely within that 16, so you might as well get at least 175 if you're just shooting them in the chest. So that seems good to me. Overall, that's my early build on the Hunter Ash from Evil Dead 2. I'm enjoying the character a lot. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. We'll probably try another build here in the future, but I'm really liking this character. I'm loving the game in general, and we'll just see how it goes. If you enjoyed this content, or you think you might use this build, let me know how it goes. If you have a build that you've been trying out yourself, let me know as well. I always like to see new builds, and we'll see you on the next one.